Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, and this is going to be more than an Inside the Birds minute. This is going to be what I and Adam will call an emergency Inside the Birds video, and there's a lot going on. So obviously we're doing this, Adam, because the coronavirus has basically thrown a curveball into the entire NFL pre-draft process, and I think you and we've been on the phone with agents, with league personnel, with prospects, the whole gamut of what's going on in the NFL right now to try to figure out what's going to happen now that a lot of things are canceled, right? And what we're really going to get to the heart of here, Adam, is because, and I saw someone tweet this to me, a comment like, well, all the teams kind of know who they want in the draft anyway. What does this matter this next 5-6 weeks or so between the combine and the draft? And it matters a lot. So we're going to kind of talk about now why it matters, who it matters most for, and the impact of everything going on here in the NFL.
Yeah, it's interesting, Geoff. Earlier this week, from talking with scouts who are going to pro days, someone told me that whoever they report to, maybe it was the scouting director or the personnel director, said, hey, guys, with this virus situation, we'd rather you drive than fly. For place, it might have been, let's say it was over a 6-hour drive.
Right.
They would have that's when they would have him fly or whatever the rules were. They then wanted him to really drive as much as possible, so they didn't interact with a big group of people in an airport and also in a plane in a condensed area. Mm-hmm. But then late Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon early, I talked to several people around the National Football League, scouting people. Agents told me who were supposed to go to pro days. They were told not to go. Scouts who told me they had been to pro days earlier this week. They were already on their pro day circuit. Were told that's it. The Eagles personnel, I'm told, were notified by email that they are not going to, till further notice. They're out of pro days, do all their film work at home. And then, as we fast forward this, it's funny, you said to lead off, and it's true to a certain point. There's a lot going on, but yet there's nothing going on. That's the thing. Everything is canceled, Geoff.
Yeah.
This is the way I understand it. No scouts are going to pro days. Whatever pro day, I think a Thursday afternoon or early evening, I think Eastern time, it might have been Oregon had their pro day. Well, those people were there already, so they went.
Right.
That's it. I think they're being pulled off. I think every team is pulling their guys off the road. I know the Eagles are everyone in the building in NovaCare, the NovaCare complex. Unless you have to go there, the only people who are going are essential personnel, I think, it might be for video.
Right.
And then medical personnel who have to be there.
Right.
They're basically told to work from home for 2 weeks. And it's funny, every statement seemed from NFL teams said, okay, our people are going to work from home. Okay, great. The Rams put in their statement, no one's going to anything. Literally nothing. Now,
right.
So you said that you got a tweet about what does it matter as we dig into this, because this show today really applies to all 32 teams, not just the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
When teams put grades together, and I asked Bill Polian this when I worked with him at ESPN, he said pretty much tape study was 75% of the grade. That seems to jibe with people I've talked to around the National Football League. So as this person said to you, well, what the hell does it matter if they don't go to a pro day? Well, it does, because it's a second set of eyes on a player, or, Geoff, as you know, sometimes it's the first set of eyes for players who didn't work out the combine.
Right, and if I'm going to add to that, you're right that 75% of what teams do is done on tape, but I would say that 25% that's not tape is critical, and you're talking about players who have perhaps medical question marks right now. For example, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of prospects who are nursing injuries or had injuries go back to Indianapolis for what they call the combine recheck, where somebody from each team is there as well to make sure that players who had surgeries or major injuries are either ready or not ready. That's a very important thing that's probably also going to get canceled as well. Now you're going to have to rely on information for these guys disseminated. You're not going to get your own set of eyes on it. And of course, Adam, those who chose not to run the 40-yard dash, like KJ Hamler from Penn State, how much his stock going to get impacted by not being able to run the 40? maybe not as much as though a 5th or a 6th round guy who either didn't run the 40 or ran a poor 40 on just a bad day at the combine and was looking forward to his pro day to doing a lot better. So there's a lot of people that fall under that category. There's character, there's the ability to have private workouts and really get a chance to dive deep into a prospect, what he knows, how he thinks, especially when he's out there in an actual workout situation. So you may only think it's only 25% of the scouting and dismiss this as a big deal, but you and I can both attest to, for NFL teams and for these prospects, that's a big 25%. There were 2 prospects just come to mind for me last year that would be affected by this. Jeffrey Simmons, who went in the first round to the Titans, who was coming off ACL surgery, and he checked out fairly well during the process, so they were comfortable drafting him in the first round. And then also DK Metcalf, who had injuries, and people were wondering about his injury status and getting reports on that. So those are 2 prominent names. You can multiply that by a lot of different guys who are going to get drafted. I want to ask you this, though, while we talk about that.
Yep.
Because to my knowledge, as we record this on Thursday night, March 12th, not every single pro day has been canceled yet, and not every single team, to my knowledge, and I just asked someone about 10 minutes ago, and they were understanding that there are still some NFL teams that are traveling or haven't completely grounded all operations. I think it would be best for everybody involved if there was just one universal decision that this is all stopped.
All right, so Geoff, a couple things here. First of all, on the combine recheck, I've not been told that they're not going to have. They're always it's always in April. It's not in March.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been heard that that's canceled yet. So I'm not 100% sure on that.
Right.
But you could always get. First of all, you could send a player. Let's say it was Jeffrey Simmons last year. The Titans wound up drafting him in the first round. Let's say your team. All the agent has to do is send him to Dr. Andrews, because I think he had a torn ACL, and have an MRI, and Dr. Andrews could give him an update, and also that you send the scans to the team doctor. Now, the issue is, though, they don't get to, unless the kid can enter your building, you can't take a look at him physically because you haven't had that pre-draft visit, and it's real important. Now with the visits, you are right in terms of visits. Some teams have said they're not going to have them for the ones that are recent over the next 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to Temple and Penn State, Temple's was Monday, Tuesday was Penn State, Monday was Temple. Those pro days are canceled. However, the way the agents I spoke to were going to go were told the schools did not completely eliminate the possibility of later in the spring it being rescheduled, kind of like in April. So that's kind of what you're saying, kind of what you're bringing up. There is a potential for these NFL teams that almost all of them have said that they're not sending their guys out on the road for now. There is that possibility in April that they send these guys out on the road. It's just the immediate future. It's basically 2 weeks is the way the teams are putting it out, that they're telling their personnel. 2 weeks is what kind of what offices and non-sports are doing. We need to get everything cleaned up, like the NovaCare complex here in Philly, so to speak. If people have the virus, you need at least 2 weeks to get these people healthy. Whatever the case is, whatever they're coming with the national standard seems to be 2 weeks. That seems to be why they're doing it.
So it's interesting because we do this again on March 12th, and it just seems like every day more things that you didn't expect to shut down, right?
What's left?
I just
What's
heard
left?
Disney World and Disneyland are shutting down.
Yeah.
And so you wonder if the 2 weeks is just kind of an optimistic estimation of how long things are going to be out of commission, or if the NFL realistically is going to be shut down longer, and if that's going to impact the draft and anything else.
Vegas. Yeah. So, okay. So, all right, let's get to that before I want to get back to the draft stuff, just on the visits and what everything means. But I do want to talk about this subject you just brought up. It's very important with the draft and what's going to go on in April. So the first thing that the NFL canceled from a macro standpoint was the NFL owners meetings. Those were going to be, this is where 2 things happen. The rule changes happen, as we know. The competition committee brings everything up to discussion. They present to the owners, and the owners vote on it. That's the big thing, obviously, from a fan standpoint. But from a league standpoint, the big thing, Geoff, is that when you look at kind of what goes on and what's going to happen, they look. The thing after that is the draft. They have not said what's going to happen with the draft yet. Right now, it's on in Vegas, April 23rd, but the owners' meetings are gone from April 29th to the 1st. But the big thing is they got rescheduled for May 19th and 20th in Los Angeles. I'm going to go to that one. That one will probably be short. The finance committees meet, all these committees meet, and they'll vote on role changes. Now the question, they say that because a lot of the head coaches are involved in the competition committee. And by the way, every NFL head coach goes to that March owners meetings. Now the only issue there is because this is going to be in the period of OTAs after the draft. How many coaches are going to go? So they may reschedule that one May OTA for another week. Who knows? But the big thing for fans, and obviously I should have said club personnel as well with the rule changes. Oh, by the way, the Eagles proposed 4 of them?
Yeah, they're very active in that.
Yeah. So that was actually interesting.
So back to how this impacts the overall scouting process. And again, we want to emphasize that these weeks between the combine and the draft are very important because the coaches get to get involved more. They're not game planning, right? And they come back from the combine. They go to the pro days. A lot of times coaches lead the pro day workouts. And then you have private workouts where coaches get to have more individual time with these players and then kind of adapt them to how well they fit their scheme. And so you really see the transformation of the scouting process to the coaching process so that when they all meet for their draft meetings, which is another thing, by the way, that's going to get thrown a curveball, these draft meetings in the week or two leading up to the draft, the coaches feel more comfortable voicing how they feel about certain prospects. And certainly that is taken into account by the decision makers. It feels as if, and the vibe I'm getting is that coaches are going to have to spend a lot more time using technology, both coaches and agents. I've heard that coaches are going to be FaceTiming way more, and scouts will be FaceTiming with prospects a lot more. In fact, I was just talking to the father of a prospect yesterday, and he said, my son's going to be FaceTiming with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so coming up. So, and I talked to an agent. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I talked to an agent whose prospect did not run the 40 at the combine, and what he wants to do is live stream his guy running a 40-yard dash for anybody that wants to see.
How are they going to?
Pretty innovative.
Hang on. Here's the question.
Are
they doing this so the guy can run a 40?
Yeah.
But
so
how,
that you can see his 40 in live full time.
Right. That's an interesting proposal. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Give him credit for trying.
Yeah, sure. Look, they've got to be able to get, okay, so when it comes to Hamler, KJ Hamler, the way the team's explained to me is all they need is a verified 40. If they don't get one, they know what his tape looks like. They know how explosive he is. They like to have it. Like when Keenan Allen didn't have, Keenan Allen, as explained to me by a team today, he did run at his pro day. He didn't run at the combine because he was recovering from a PCL sprain. But he delayed everything, and then he ran it. He ran in the 4.7s, which is really bad. And it's just he wasn't right physically, and people were saying he was ducking, trying to do everything. I don't think that was the case, but nevertheless, he went in the 3rd round instead of the 2nd. He really should have been a 2nd-round pick. Teams, here's the thing. Here's the problem with the 40, Geoff. Now we're talking about this thing. The tape tells you what the player is. Keenan Allen is a supreme and was a supreme possession receiver, about as good as it gets. So they just screwed up. Team screwed up. They overrated speed. You grade the guy by the tape, and if the guy looks like he's a 4.5 player instead of a 4.7 player, you grade him accordingly, and you go by that. And I remember Brent Selleck when he ran a pre-draft. Someone with the Eagles told me that he ran really poorly. It might have been like extremely slow. Like it could have been a 4.8. I don't remember exact time.
Right.
The Eagles strictly went by the tape and drafted in the 5th round, and obviously that was a home run.
Yeah, I mean, this really impacts a lot of teams, though, and mostly for the negative. I mean, we talk a lot about the Eagles, right, and whether or not they've done all their diligence on every single prospect. And, you know, we've talked about it in the past, some of the guys that we think maybe they missed on and what kind of information they got. And the bottom line is, you know, the tape now is going to become more than 75% of the process. And sometimes there's a danger in going back to the tape and watching it way too much because you get paralysis by analysis, or yeah, that's the term.
Correct.
So it's a tough time for these guys. And you made the joke, like not every single employee at a NFL headquarters right now is off the hook, right? Because the video guys, and I was speaking to someone who knows a video guy on an NFC team, and that guy's not, he's got to do cut-ups now and upon cut-ups for the coaches because they're going to be asking for a lot more video. Those are the guys, the coaches are going to be at the complex. I mean, that's just, they live there. They sleep there. So
right.
Business side, probably working from home, but coaches are going to be in there burning the midnight oil, watching a lot of tape.
Yeah. Let me add one thing before we get back to the owners' meetings. There's something I wanted to add.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, let's say it's a senior player, right? Like, you can't. Let's say for right now, let's say the guy was just a visit this week, and you can't bring him in because the coronavirus is not under control yet. The hope is, at least if you talk to him or interview him at the Senior Bowl, or that you sat down with him at the Combine. Now, with KJ Hamler, I'm told the Eagles. Hamler did confirm he met with the Eagles. I'm told it was actually a formal interview. So the good thing is, Geoff, at the Combine. By the way, did you see the video of Carson Wentz from the Combine from 2016 with the Eagles?
Oh, where the interview. Yes, I've seen that interview.
Yeah, that was phenomenal, right? That is exactly what a formal interview is. That's what Hamler had done. Whatever, I just know for a fact that they interviewed him formal and they had him for whatever the time slot is. But if you let's say they didn't get Hamler, let's say I'm not saying this is going to happen. Let's say they don't have him in for a visit. Let's say that they didn't sit down with him at the Combine, and he doesn't work out. He doesn't because Penn State doesn't have a pro day. He doesn't run for them. You could still work him out privately, like that. You still have that opportunity later on, closer to the draft. By the way, you could work out. I know the league told me this year after year because I ask the same question every year. You could work out players during draft week. They cannot visit during draft week unless the rules are changed. Now, they may be because of this situation. And Geoff, one more thing that I want to talk about with the NFL owners meetings and the rule changes. It's funny, of all teams, the Eagles, of the rules that were submitted, and I don't know why more were not submitted, but there are only 3 teams submitted rules, and the Eagles submitted more than any of them. The blindside block rule comes in seems to be every year. But the 2 that I found very interesting, first of all, the Eagles, and I know this pissed them off 2 years ago, they got absolutely jobbed, Geoff, as you know, against the Cowboys when Dallas Goedert lost that 75-yard touchdown, and the absolute awful call on the opening kickoff when they clearly got a turnover. So what their submission was: make permanent the expansion of automatic replay reviews to include scoring plays, Dallas Goedert, and turnovers negated by a foul, or and any successful or unsuccessful try attempt. Somewhere along the line here, maybe it didn't necessarily bring up the Dallas plays, but the problem is that too many times teams are getting burned by awful calls or ones, as I know you said, Geoff, to me before when we've talked about this play over the years. So that play against Dallas was they couldn't get a clear view from the camera, correct?
Right. No clear recovery.
Right. So it's got to be what they have to do is they've got to be able to get the right camera angle. And maybe this is exactly what the Eagles were talking about. But the fact of the matter is, one of the problems that the NFL has is we at home have HD TV. By the way, they have HD TV when they watch. So I remember talking to the league about this. How the hell could we see it at home and get it right and they can't?
Valid question.
Yeah, this is the problem that coaches have. And in that Dallas game, they got robbed on 2 plays. And there are plenty of plays by all 32 teams that are really bad. But
Right.
That one, the Goddard one, if you remember, he stood his arm. He did stick his arm out, but I don't even know if he touched the guy. It's just that the guy saw the ref saw him extend,
Yeah.
and the ref missed it, and that cost him a touchdown. As a matter of fact, that game went in overtime, did it not?
Yes, it did. I believe it did.
Yeah, and then it's funny. The overtime, they submitted the 15-minute overtime instead of 10. the reason I was told that the NFL that they reduced it from 15 to 10 is some coaches felt that if they had to travel, let's say they had to travel from west to east or east to west and play a Sunday night game. Oh, by the way, then you have to play 15-minute overtime. Reduces to 10 would put less stress on their team because they have to fly back. They don't get back to Monday morning. Mm-hmm. So that was part of it, why they wanted that to happen. And then the Eagles also wanted to implement rules to minimize the impact of the overtime toss. Well, first of all, the big one is Patrick Mahomes. We got robbed 2 years ago when he had that unbelievable playoff game.
Oh my God! Yeah, definitely
gets New England. So right, those are the ones that I want to bring up because the competition committee does such a great job, but there are things that they clearly miss, and sometimes they just don't pass. And I'm hoping that the expansion of replays to include scoring plays and turnovers negated by a foul, and any successful or unsuccessful try attempt. I'm really hoping these pass because the goal is to get everything to be close to as perfect, and they're close to it, but they're not there yet.
All right. Well, obviously that's stuff that has to be discussed when the owners meet in the owners meeting, which is right now off, and we'll have to see that as we talk about today, as the many things that are impacted in the NFL by the coronavirus, that is one of them, along with the CBA, which we didn't even get into, but everybody I think gets the gist now of just how impactful all these cancelings and what the coronavirus is doing in the NFL. And I just want to be clear, that's why we did this video. We of course know that fans, that everyday people, that, workers, that there are so many people, elderly, young, all of us, we're all impacted by the coronavirus in some form or fashion. So this video wasn't intended to just say boo-hoo for the NFL, but was intended for you and I to at least share the information that we got and try to explain why these weeks are so important leading up to the draft for NFL teams and the NFL.
There's no doubt, Geoff, this is major. If there's a player you really love in the first round and you don't get access to this player before the draft,
right,
through the Senior Bowl, Combine, pre-draft visit, private workout, pro day, if you don't get any of that stuff, how do you get the characters? So one thing I do want to add, Geoff, that really means you got to go to your area scout. You know how much you're going to rely on your area scout for that?
A lot more than normal.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know. It'll make for some good war room debates in Philly and every single NFL city across the country. All right, that's going to do it for this special edition of Inside the Birds on YouTube. I want to thank everybody for watching and following. Make sure you're checking out the Inside the Birds website, insidethebirds.com, because we're going to be writing a little bit about this and some more stuff in the coming days. And make sure you're subscribing to the Inside the Bird podcast on all the major podcast platforms, on Twitter @InsideBirds. We're everywhere, baby. Websites, social media, YouTube. It's fantastic. So for Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. We'll catch you on the next YouTube video. Have a great weekend, everyone.